Hello, glad to see you on the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
You ever get a message so casual, so damn nonchalant, that it doesn't even make you angry at first? It just lands on your chest like a brick and sits there, heavy and silent, while the rest of your body keeps pretending everything's fine. That was me, sitting on my kitchen counter, sipping half-cold coffee from a chipped mug that said "World's Okayest Daughter," when my phone lit up. The screen showed Mom's name, and for a moment I felt something warm hope, maybe. That soft little flicker we keep tucked away, even when we know better. But that flicker? It didn't last long. The text read, "Hey sweetie. Emily said it would just be easier this year if it were just us. Please understand. It's nothing personal. We love you. Nothing personal." Let that sink in for a second. I stared at it for maybe 5 straight minutes, reading it over and over like I was missing a second part. Something like, "Just kidding. You're always welcome." Or even, "Let's Zoom on Christmas morning." But no. That was the whole message. Short, sharp, surgical, delivered like they were canceling a subscription they never really wanted to begin with. And before anyone starts wondering, no, this wasn't some one-time thing. This wasn't out of the blue. If anything, it was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. Not yelling, not passive-aggressive. Just done. Like I was a chore they finally found the guts to quit. I didn't cry. Not right away, anyway. I laughed, actually. Out loud. Scared my cat, made her jump from the armrest. Because of course Emily said that. Of course my little sister, perfect, golden, always the victim Emily, said it would be easier. And of course my parents agreed. They probably didn't even hesitate. Probably nodded their heads in unison, like they always do, like they're synchronized swimmers in the shallow end of moral backbone. Easier without me. That part kept bouncing around in my head like a loose screw. Easier than what? Than dealing with my honest opinions? Then pretending we're not walking on eggshells every Thanksgiving? Then letting someone else have a damn opinion at the dinner table for once? And for the record, I wasn't planning on causing drama this year. I had even bought matching pajamas. I bought a gift for Emily's new boyfriend, and I don't even know the guy. I wrapped everything in paper with dumb snowmen on it and tied little ribbons. You know, the cheap kind that curl when you run scissors along them. I was trying. Like a goddamn fool. But I guess that wasn't enough. So I sat there for a long time, the kind of long where the coffee gets cold twice and you don't realize the sun's gone down. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence was its own kind of answer, and for once, I let it speak. Because if I'd said anything, it would have been ugly. It would have been the kind of message you don't come back from. And I wasn't ready to torch the bridge. Not yet. Instead, I stared at that message until the screen dimmed. Then I stood up, dumped the coffee, and tossed the whole mug in the trash. That dumb, sarcastic mug I'd gotten myself at a gas station 3 years ago because no one ever bought me anything without being reminded. I spent the rest of the night cleaning. Not out of anger. Just focus. I vacuumed under the couch. I scrubbed the grout in the kitchen tiles with a toothbrush. And the whole time, that message played in my mind like a song stuck on loop. Just easier without you. Easier. You know what that means, right? It means I was the hard part. I was the tension. The conflict. The one who remembered the birthdays they forgot, who showed up to Dad's surgery when Emily was too overwhelmed. I was the one who brought a casserole to Mom's house after her shingles outbreak and cleaned her bathroom without a word. I was the backup daughter. The utility knife in the junk drawer. Always there. Never special. And here's the thing. That night, something shifted. I felt it click inside me like a lock turning, like a door finally swinging open after years of rattling the handle. And it wasn't rage, exactly. I didn't want to scream or send a 10-paragraph guilt bomb. I didn't want to beg or explain myself or try to talk it out. No. I wanted them to feel it, just for once. The silence. The cold space where warmth used to be. I wanted them to sit around Emily's perfect little Christmas tree, drinking wine I probably bought 2 years ago, and feel the hollow echo of absence. My absence. The quiet kind that creeps into the room and makes everyone uncomfortable because no one knows whether to acknowledge it or pretend it's not there. So I made a plan. Not to crash the party. I wasn't going to show up and throw tinsel like grenades or start a scene. That would have been too easy, too obvious. They'd expect that from dramatic, bitter Jenna. No. Something better. I smiled for the first time in weeks. A real one. The kind you feel in your stomach. Because they thought leaving me out would be simple. But nothing's simple when you forget the one person who remembers everything. And trust me, I remember everything. There's something uniquely soul-rotting about being the person everyone assumes will clean up after the parade, the one holding the mop when the confetti's settled and the champagne's gone flat and the stars have already left the stage. That was me, Jenna, the sister with the sensible shoes and decent credit score, the emergency contact for 3 people who'd rather not speak to me unless something broke, bled, or bounced. And 5 years ago, when Emily stood in front of that stupid A-frame cabin smiling, like she'd just won a game she didn't even know she was playing, I stood next to her and nodded like a goddamn idiot. She called it her forever dream escape. I called it a terrible investment in the middle of nowhere with no insulation and questionable plumbing, but I said that part in my head. Out loud, I said, it's cute because I'd already signed the loan paperwork and there was no sense in ruining the celebration. Emily didn't have the credit for it, of course. Her job as a wellness coach hadn't exactly convinced any bank that she could be trusted with long-term commitments or monthly payments. But guess who did have a solid history of paying bills on time and not defaulting on 2 different phone plans? That's right, Jenna the backup plan. Jenna the responsible. Jenna the one who knew better and still did it anyway. My parents? They acted like it was some noble sacrifice I should be proud of, like I was the older sister with a hero complex, always stepping in just before things went to hell. You're doing such a good thing, my mom said, patting my arm like I was a volunteer at a soup kitchen. My dad said, that's what family does, even though I was pretty sure he wouldn't have co-signed a library card for me if the roles were reversed. Emily promised to pay me back, of course. First 6 months, I've got it covered, she said, her voice all breathy and confident, like she actually believed the lie while saying it. After that, I'll refi under my own name, no problem. She even made a spreadsheet, which I should have known was a red flag because she's never finished a single one of those color-coded miracles in her entire damn life. For the record, she never made a single full payment. Not one. The first month, she covered half. The second month, she forgot. The third, she texted me something about Mercury being in retrograde and how that was impacting her client load. After that, it became just until my next retreat sells out and once I get through this tax stuff. Eventually, she stopped mentioning it altogether, like the debt had just dissolved into the air like incense. I kept paying because if I didn't, my credit would take the hit and I'd lose everything I'd worked for. I covered the utilities when they got too high. I paid for repairs when the pipes froze that first winter. I paid the goddamn snowplow guy. I paid the property tax when she forgot the envelope in her car. I calculated that over the years, I probably paid at least 800% of that cabin's mortgage. Wait, no, I meant 80%. Math was never my strong suit. I can already hear someone in the comments saying, actually, that's not possible and yeah, you're probably right, buddy. But the point stands, I paid far more than I ever should have for something I never even wanted to own. The worst part? They acted like it was natural. Expected. Like I was supposed to support Emily's dreams the way a bridge supports traffic. Silent, unmoving, slowly cracking under weight no one sees. She posted about that cabin like it was a reward for manifesting abundance, and all I could do was scroll past the pictures of her smiling in front of the fireplace I paid to have installed and remind myself that I wasn't crazy. But maybe I was. Maybe I was crazy for thinking there'd ever be a thank you. Maybe I was delusional for believing there would be a year, just one, when they'd turn around and say, "You've done enough, Jenna." Sit down. Breathe. Let us take care of something for once. That moment never came. Instead, what I got 5 years later was a text telling me that Christmas would be easier without me, sent from the very cabin my name is still legally tied to. You want to know the kicker? The cherry on the sundae? Emily made me sign a liability waiver last year so she could host an Airbnb retreat up there without me interfering with business. A waiver. Like I was a threat. Like I wasn't the reason the hot water worked or the roof didn't leak. And the thing is, I signed it. Because that's what I do. I smooth things over. I make it work. But when that Christmas text came, I remembered every damn payment. Every overdraft fee. Every phone call with the bank. Every time I bit my tongue while Emily talked about independence and building something herself. I remembered Mom saying, "Well, you're the one with the resources." Like that made it okay. Like that made it my job. And that's when the gears really started turning. That's when I stopped thinking of myself as the backup plan and started thinking about leverage. Real leverage. Because they may have taken me off the guest list, but they forgot one small, crucial detail. And you better believe I kept a spare key. There's a certain kind of silence that exists only in snowy woods just before Christmas, a hush so deep it feels like the trees are holding their breath. And as I stood at the edge of Emily's gravel driveway, that silence wrapped itself around me like a heavy coat. I had parked a quarter-mile up the road, left my old beat-up Civic behind a stand of pines, far enough that no nosy neighbors or local hunters could glance out their window and wonder who the hell was walking toward the cabin with purpose in their step and a key already warm in their palm. The spare key still hung under the third shingle near the side entrance, exactly where Emily used to keep it back when she was still pretending she'd trust me with the real one. I didn't need to break in, didn't need to force anything. I just slipped through like a memory, quiet and deliberate. The cabin smelled like cedar and eucalyptus, a combination of too many overpriced candles and whatever diffuser crap she was into lately. But underneath all of that, I could smell something else: arrogance. It was in every piece of furniture, in the painfully curated bookshelves filled with titles no one had actually read, in the framed photos of Emily at wellness retreats and beach vacations, always centered in the frame like the world had arranged itself around her glow. The whole house was a shrine to her version of the truth. A place where I didn't exist. Or if I did, I was just the shadow off camera, the blurry figure holding the receipt. I didn't have a lot of time, maybe an hour, 2 tops. I knew their schedule. They always did the big Christmas grocery haul on the 23rd, a tradition as old as Emily's dietary restrictions. They'd go into town, spend too long at the artisan market, complain about the lack of vegan eggnog, and return just before dinner, exhausted and self-congratulatory. So I moved fast, but I didn't rush. Everything had to be just right. The wine rack was the first stop. I replaced every bottle of organic, biodynamic, hand-harvested whatever the hell with boxed wine from the gas station near my house. The kind that tastes like vinegar had a baby with cough syrup. I peeled the original labels off the bottles and used a glue stick to slap them onto the boxes, reshelving them in the rack like nothing had changed. No crime in that. Just a gentle reminder that appearances can lie. Next was the Wi-Fi router. I logged into the admin panel, changed the password to Family Fail in all caps, and renamed the network to Better Without Jenna. I figured they'd get the joke, though it wasn't really a joke at all. It was a headline. A punchline with blood on its teeth. In the bathroom, I found one of Emily's expensive hand lotions, the kind in the tiny glass jar with gold lettering and a lavender scent that probably costs more than my monthly internet bill. I unscrewed the lid, added just a single drop of sardine oil, stirred it gently with a cotton swab, then sealed it back up like nothing had happened. Not enough to be dangerous, just enough to linger. Just enough to confuse her. I didn't touch anything that would actually hurt them. I didn't break things or steal anything. That wasn't the point. I wasn't trying to ruin Christmas. I was trying to introduce friction, just enough to make their smiles falter, just enough to make the picture crack a little at the edges. I wanted them to notice the absence. Not just physically, but emotionally. Like a ghost they couldn't explain, brushing cold fingers across the back of their necks when the fire was burning high. Then came the card. I wrote it on thick paper, the kind that feels like it should matter. No signature. Just one sentence in perfect black ink. It wasn't easier without her. I placed it on the mantel where they'd find it eventually, maybe while pretending not to look for signs of me. Maybe when Mom tried to rearrange the stockings for the 10th time, or when Dad turned down the volume on the fire channel, thinking the crackling was too loud. And finally, the bags. I took my time with that part. My parents' things were mostly still half unpacked, because God forbid they act like guests in Emily's little kingdom. I folded their clothes neatly, stacked their toiletries with care, zipped the suitcases quietly, respectfully. Then I carried them one by one to the front porch. The snow had just started falling again, those soft, fat flakes that feel like forgiveness if you squint hard enough. I lined the bags up like a procession, like a departure, like an ending. When everything was in place, I took one last look at the living room. The firewood was stacked. The lights twinkled around the windows. The stockings were crooked. It looked perfect, in the way only something deeply fake can look perfect. I let the door close softly behind me and walked back to the tree line, breathing hard, heart pounding not from fear, but from clarity. They got home around 8. By 8:05, the screaming started. The first one came at 8:37, just minutes after the screaming died down and the reality must have set in after the wine started tasting like betrayal and the hand lotion started to smell like low tide. My phone lit up on the counter while I was washing dishes, the same dishes I'd left in the sink before heading out to the cabin. I didn't answer, obviously. I just stared at the screen like it was a TV rerun of a show I'd already seen too many times. Caller ID said Mom, but the voice that poured into the voicemail inbox didn't sound like the woman who raised me. It sounded like someone unraveling in slow motion. The message started normal enough, or at least, what passes for normal in a family that's spent decades pretending polite indifference is the same thing as love. Jenna, sweetie, we just got to the cabin, and her voice cracked, not dramatically, but in that real way where a sentence catches itself and tries to keep going like nothing happened. Someone's been here, she said. We think it might have been you. I hope it wasn't. Please tell me it wasn't. Then came the sigh. Always the sigh. Like she was exhausted by me even through the phone. Like I was the one who'd made her tired. That was just the beginning. By the time I was done drying my hands and sitting back on the couch with a blanket pulled over my legs, I had 4 missed calls and 3 new voicemails, all from the same number. The second one had more edge to it. Dad's voice this time. If this is some kind of joke, Jenna, you need to grow up, he said. You can't just come into people's homes and mess with their things. His voice was trying to sound firm, but there was a wobble to it, like he couldn't quite believe what he was saying. Or maybe, deep down, he knew they had it coming. You're going to explain yourself, he said, and then he hung up. Explain myself. That part almost made me laugh. After 43 years of being their backup plan, their emotional sponge, their quiet little afterthought, I was supposed to explain myself? No one asked for an explanation when they left me off the Christmas list. No one called to ask how I felt when they told me it was just easier without me. But now that I'd shifted the weight back onto their shoulders for once, suddenly everyone needed a reason. A motive. A confession. But I didn't know them any of that. The third voicemail was the one that stuck with me. Mom again, but quieter this time. You could tell she was sitting down, probably in the living room, probably looking around at all the subtle changes and feeling the walls close in. You scared me, Jenna, she said, voice low and trembly. This isn't like you. This isn't the daughter I know. That line hung in the air long after the message ended. Because she was right. This wasn't the daughter she knew. The daughter she knew would have cried, would have apologized, would have backed down. But that daughter was gone. Emily didn't call. Not once. Instead, she took to Facebook like the little attention-starved banshee she's always been. Posted a filtered photo of the fireplace with some caption like, "Our holiday was disrupted by a stalker." Some people never change. The comments were full of sympathy from her yoga friends and old high school classmates who only ever saw her highlight reel. "So sorry, they wrote. Sending you love." Someone even said, "Family can be toxic," and she heart-reacted it. She didn't name me, of course, she's not that direct, but everyone knew. It didn't take a genius to figure out who she meant. And that's the difference between me and Emily. She wants to be pitted. I want the truth. I wasn't angry when I did what I did. People keep assuming that. But the truth is, I was calm. Almost too calm. Because it wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about balance. About finally tipping the scale back toward center after spending my entire life on the low end. I didn't want to ruin Christmas. I wanted to give them a version of what I'd always felt. Confusion, exclusion, unease. The sensation of walking into a room where something's wrong and no one will admit it. By the time the fifth voicemail came in, I was already in bed, lights off, the room dark except for the glow of my phone screen. I didn't listen to that one right away. I let it sit overnight like a leftover argument. The next morning, I played it with my first cup of coffee. Dad again. This time quieter. "Jenna," he said, "we don't know what you're trying to say. But we miss you." "Okay, can you please just call us?" That was the first time in years I'd heard him say the word miss. And it still didn't mean what he wanted it to. Then came the sixth voicemail. Mom again. Crying. Not sobbing, not theatrics, just crying. That real, tired kind of crying where the breath catches and the voice shakes, and every syllable sounds like it's been chewed up before being spoken. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "We just thought maybe this year it would be simpler. But it's not. It's not, Jenna. Nothing feels right. Please. Please just talk to us." I sat there holding the phone like it was burning my palm. I listened to every word. I imagined her curled on the couch, her mascara smeared, her hands shaking, and for a second, I felt something close to guilt. A flicker. A twitch. But it passed. Because I remembered being 12 years old and hearing her say, "Why can't you be more like Emily?" I remembered standing in her kitchen 2 summers ago, offering to help when she was sick, and her saying, "Emily's already taking care of it." I remembered my name never being spoken with pride, only obligation. So I did the only thing I could. I deleted the voicemail. Just pressed the little trash icon and let it disappear into the void like all the other things they'd tossed aside over the years. And that's when I knew. I wasn't done yet. There's a specific kind of calm that follows a storm when everything feels too still, too clean, like the world is holding its breath before it dares speak again, and that's exactly how it felt the morning I packed the box. I had set my alarm for 6, even though I hadn't really slept, just dozed in and out with the glow of my phone screen for company and the last of the voicemails bouncing around my head like a ball in a too small room. But I wasn't rushing. I moved slowly, deliberately, each step feeling like it had been planned for years, maybe even longer. The box wasn't fancy, just an old shoebox I had wrapped in plain brown paper and sealed with 2 layers of clear tape, the kind that squeals when it pulls off the roll like it doesn't want to be used. Inside it, I didn't put rage. I didn't put accusations or threats or some dramatic monologue about being the forgotten daughter. No, what I packed was memory, raw, honest, carefully chosen bits of a childhood that had never quite belonged to me. It was the kind of gift that looks harmless until you open it, until you start pulling the pieces apart and realizing what they meant, what they said without a single word printed on them. Right on top was the drawing I'd made when I was 5, the one I found buried in a box of old linens in my mom's basement the year she tried to clean out the guest room. It was just crayon on construction paper, faded now, the edges crinkled from moisture and time, but it was still legible. A big red heart, 2 stick figures holding hands, and the word mommy spelled with 2 M's and a backwards Y. I remember showing it to her, proud as hell, and I remember her putting it on the fridge for a day. Maybe two. Then it disappeared, and I found it years later shoved in a bag like it had never mattered. I sent that drawing back to her, not to accuse her, but to remind her of what she'd thrown away so easily. Beneath that, I included my 4th grade school photo, the one with the cracked glass, still in the cheap dollar store frame, still with the corner bent from when it fell behind the cabinet, and no one bothered to retrieve it. I'd found it after they moved houses and asked if they wanted to keep it. My mother had shrugged and said, "We already have Emily's from that year," like that explained everything. There was also a hospital bracelet with my name on it from when I got stitches in my chin at age 9, tripping over Emily's rollerblades in the driveway. My dad had taken her to the movies that day while I sat in urgent care alone with a nurse named Clara who held my hand and told me I was brave. They forgot about that day entirely. But I didn't. Tucked into the side of the box was a birthday card I never gave them. It was addressed to both of them, dated 3 years ago, back when I still tried to play along, to act like I wasn't just waiting for someone to finally say I mattered. I had written something about how grateful I was, even though I wasn't. I had written that I was lucky to have them, even though I knew better. I'd never mailed it because I couldn't bring myself to lie so cleanly. Now it would sit in their hands with a new kind of meaning. And at the very bottom, under all of it, under the weight of memories they had chosen to forget, was the note. It wasn't long. Just 10 words, printed in neat, clear handwriting. "You said it was easier without me. Let's make that permanent." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. After sealing the box, I drove it to the post office, paid for priority shipping, and walked out without looking back. I didn't stick around to imagine their faces when it arrived. I didn't rehearse the reaction. That wasn't the point. The point was finality. The point was drawing a line that couldn't be smudged or walked back over. When I got home, I did 3 things in quick succession, as if they'd been waiting in a queue for permission. First, I closed the joint credit account my parents had been casually using for emergencies over the last 5 years, racking up grocery charges, gas fill-ups, even a few vacation stays. The card was in my name. I had never authorized them to use it, but I also never stopped them. Until now. Then I blocked their numbers. All of them. Mom's, Dad's, even Emily's, though she hadn't called once. I deleted every voicemail, every old text, even the ones I used to reread when I was lonely enough to believe they meant something. I shut the door, and this time I locked it from the inside. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat at the kitchen table, looked out the window, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: space. Not peace exactly, but space. Like the air had finally expanded to include me again. Weeks passed. I didn't hear a word. The silence wasn't new, but now it belonged to me. I filled it with books, with long walks, with episodes of bad TV that didn't demand anything from me. I didn't check their social media. I didn't stalk Emily's stories. I just existed. Then one day a letter arrived. It was in my mailbox, handwritten, no return address, but the handwriting was familiar enough to stop me in my tracks before I even opened it. Emily. Her writing had always been annoyingly perfect, like her life. Inside, just one line. "You don't know the whole story. Call me, please." I held it in my hands for a long time. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, not from paper, but from history. From whatever weight we assign to things that might rewrite the past. I didn't open it. I didn't want to know the whole story. I had lived my version long enough to know it mattered. So I walked to the fireplace, lit a match, and dropped the letter in. Watched the edges curl, the ink darken, the flame eat the truth whole. Easier without me? I think they were right. But that doesn't mean I'll make it easy for them.